Hello, bonjour, ahoy. I'm Roger Hilton, media presenter at GLOBsec, and welcome to a special edition of GLOBcast, filmed at GLOBsec's Château Béla 2023 European Strategic Forum. This episode wouldn't be possible without the generous support of the following partners: the International Visegrad Fund, Wilfried Martens Centre for European Studies, Konrad Adenauer Foundation, the Ministry of Defense of the Slovak Republic, CBRE, Political Capital Institute, and Jagello 2000. Joining me today is Nico Lange, Senior Fellow at the Zeitenwende-Initiative at the Munich Security Conference. Nico, welcome. Herzlich willkommen to GLOBcast.
Hello, guten Abend.
Nico, you have certainly been racking up the air miles a little bit. You just got back from the NATO's foreign ministers in Bucharest. Let's start with this point. In addition to allied ministers as well as Sweden and Finland being present, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba outlined the most urgent need, which included transformers and advanced air defense systems. To date, there has been a hesitancy to provide these systems. Do you think, given the nature of the current attacks on Ukraine, that this will change after the ministerial?
No, I think for the support of Ukraine, there are always two measurements. One measurement is, what do we have available? How far have we moved? And I think the allies in NATO, they have moved a lot. Mm-hmm. But there's always the other measurement, and that is what is militarily necessary.
Yeah.
And air defenses are coming in, modern air defenses, but not with enough missiles. And they came in late, and they are coming in slow. That has also to do with industrial cycles and with production, and with a lot of factors, but still the air defenses are not strong enough to defend against all the Russian missiles and drones and everything that they are shooting to saturate the air defense. And the destructions in the infrastructures, they are very significant. And I think it's very important to discuss this also within NATO, because energy security is part of security. And because it is a kind of a second front line domestically in Ukraine with the destruction of the energy infrastructure. Unfortunately, some of the transformers and auto-transformers that are needed, they are difficult to get, or there are countries in line for production, so negotiations need to take place to change the line of supplies, delivering the orders. So I think it was important that Minister Kuleba raised the issue there. And I think NATO showed a clear sign of solidarity.
But I mean, going back to it, of course, they've already delivered HIMARS, there's NASAMS there. But for instance, why isn't the West delivering the Patriot system? And just as an example, after the spillover in Poland, the German government offered to provide it. So do you think there's still a little bit of hesitancy from the West when it comes to an escalation spiral?
I was not in the meetings in Bucharest, obviously, but what I heard from Secretary General Stoltenberg was that Patriot was discussed. He said this at the press conference. I think we all understand that it's not just the delivery of a system or several systems. It's a question of proper training, of the proper use of the systems, but it's also a question of ammunition supply and the whole logistics chain. Yeah. Therefore, those decisions need preparation, and they need to be carefully considered. I don't know what the state of that specific discussion is, but what I see is the IRIS-T SLM air defense system, the NASAMS that are coming in, they are very good, and Ukrainians are very good and very quick in adapting to the new systems and using them. Yeah. I think that they have proven that they can use new systems very quickly.
I mean, obviously all of the advanced systems come in, as you said, they've shown a huge pace about learning it very quickly, which again is another reason why they might do it. But point taken on the Patriot system. Nico, you made up a great point already about sort of the industrial, defense industrial and production lines. And let me get your take on something. The New York Times reported recently, where Secretary Blinken was speaking on CNN, that the United States is looking at investing in former production warehouses, in frontline states like Slovakia and the Czech Republic to get sort of Soviet-style ammunition. What do you think this is a good idea? And if it is such a good idea, why did it take so long to come to fruition?
It is a good idea to invest into industrial production in general. Mm-hmm. And I think especially ammunition production, missile production needs to be ramped up. Yeah. I also believe it would have been better to do this earlier, but still it's necessary to do this now. Yeah. And that's not only legacy equipment, or legacy ammunition. It is also, I think, our modern ammunition and equipment where the production rate needs to be higher and production needs to be faster. And I think, to be honest, this is the question that Vladimir Putin is asking at the moment. Are we ready for industrial support of this war? Because he seems to be calculating that Ukraine is using ammunition and equipment faster than the partners of Ukraine are producing it. So I think also to signal to Putin that we will stand with Ukraine and that we will do what is necessary, I think those signals also to production are very important.
Let me turn it around on its head a little bit, but is Russia ready on the production side? Because obviously there's been a lot of reports about how they're having to cannibalize existing technologies to do it. They've had to resort to buying ammunition and drones from apparently North Korea and Iran. So at the same time, does Russia have the capacity to meet up with its defense production requirements?
It depends on the specific equipment and the specific ammunition. I think there are some types of ammunition, like the regular artillery they are using, where they have enormous supplies and where they are able to produce more. When it comes to more elaborate missiles or cruise missiles, I think the technological sanctions, they show that they are working. It's very difficult for Russia to produce them. But we have seen that they rely on relatively primitive artillery warfare, and for Ukraine to be able to compete in this way of conducting a war, I think large supplies of artillery ammunition, for example, are very important.
Yeah.
And there, at the moment at least, Russia still seems to have supplies and production, and we have to keep up.
Yeah, I mean, an unbelievable lesson learned, and not just for Ukraine, but also for NATO allies moving forward. Nico, let's shift back to your home country of Germany. And, from the earliest days of the war, it was the most popular buzzword going on, the Zeitenwende, right? Among Germany's, this incoming change of the long-standing foreign and security policy. Despite this, there have been a lot of voices arguing that Germany hasn't fully accepted it. And, for instance, they've been slow-rolled in the delivery of equipment. And very controversially, in October, as you know, the Scholz government allowed the sale of a small sale in the Hamburg port from Chinese Costco. So do you still believe that Germany is finding its footprint or its comfort level with this term about sort of taking a more pronounced role in defense and security in Europe and NATO?
Well, it's called Zeitenwende for a reason.
Okay.
It's certainly it's a significant change, and those kind of changes, which include cultural changes, they do not happen overnight. But I think when it comes to military assistance to Ukraine, Germany is better than its reputation.
Okay.
And Germany is delivering very significant equipment and also very significant amounts of ammunition and supplies. And I think everybody has seen that the Gebhardt has proven to be very valuable to Ukrainian armed forces, as is IRIS-T, SLM, as is other kit. I think there is some frustration with the speed and the way ministerial bureaucracies are working in Germany. Yeah. They are focusing usually on stability with the procedures, and I think many are hoping that in a Zeitenwende environment, the procedures can be a little bit faster. And of course, I believe Germany does a lot, but the measurement is not, did Germany move much? Germany moved very far, and Germany is doing many things that were unthinkable a few months ago.
Yeah.
But if the measure is not how far has Germany moved, the measure must be what is militarily necessary for Ukraine to end this war.
Yeah.
And I think there we need to have a discussion about more deliveries, about faster deliveries, and also about infantry fighting vehicles, about battle tanks, about equipment like that. So it's an ongoing process.
So if I understand you then correctly, Nico, you're actually somewhat positive or supportive of how the Zeitenwende movement is going, and that we shouldn't be rushing it. And as you said, decades of installment in German policy, it's not going to happen overnight. So you're optimistic about where we're trending with Germany in terms of the security domain?
I understand fully that Germany is of special importance because Germany is right in the center of Europe, because Germany is a very strong economic power, and the role Germany plays in EU and NATO is an important one. And if it's an important one, if you ask me, Germany should be more forward-leaning in both of them. At the same time, Germany is delivering weapons into an armed conflict now, something that was a paradigm shift for German policymaking. Germany has committed to spending 100 billion for the armed forces to make the armed forces more combat ready. If you see how the discussion on China has changed in Germany, if you see how the discussion on Russia has changed, then I think I can confirm we have come a long way. And with Zeitenwende on tour, we are traveling throughout Germany, discussing with citizens. And I have the impression everybody has understood Zeitenwende, and that is really necessary for Germany to do more for its own defense and to have a more forward-leaning position. I think what Germany can do better is not only act if the pressure is high, and be more proactive.
Yeah.
I think that is what people expect. And partnership for Germany for a very long time meant everybody's doing something, we are also doing a little bit. But partnership could also mean that Germany is actually making proposals, or Germany is moving forward.
Taking the lead and initiative.
Taking others with it. I think that is something that I would like to see happening in the future.
Well, we'll have to stay track about sort of the culture change that's going on at the defense ministry. One area, though, Nico, where Germany has definitely proved doubters wrong, at least, is, as I'm sure you know, in record time, in only 194 days, your country built its first floating LNG terminal in Germany, accepting gas. So what type of signal do you think this sends that in such a short time, Germany built this, both to its EU and NATO partners, as well as to the Kremlin, that, as I said, in only 194 days, they now have LNG floating terminal?
Zeitenwende is real in the sense that now finally everybody has understood who Putin really is, what Russia really is, and how dangerous dependencies are. If the dependencies limit the possibilities or the room for maneuver in your own foreign and security policy, then they need to be reduced. It needs to be diversified. And I think everybody got this. And in energy, there was very quick work done. Yeah. But also in other fields, I think there is an ongoing discussion that is very significant, and it is a very public discussion in Germany. I have the impression there is more public discussion about those issues than in other countries. So I'm still optimistic that Germany is moving into the right direction, even if I would always be advocating for doing more and doing it faster.
All right. Well, I mean, that's great that you sort of linked the LNG to the Zeitenwende. One last question, which I can't get away with asking you, is based on your former.
And by the way, everybody in Germany has understood Russian gas is over.
Oh, okay.
There is no return.
I mean, it's to be determined, because obviously long term we'll see what it is. Obviously, with what's happened with Nord Stream 2. You're very confident to say that. I mean, we had the former Russian deputy energy minister also on, who said that the European market is over. But you really think that's over for Germany and everything?
Yes.
Yeah? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, going back to another green issue, which I wanted to bring up based on your previous experience in the Bundeswehr. As NATO militaries try to reduce their carbon footprint, Nico, what do you think are the immediate challenges for the German military to go green? Or what are the biggest issues that they need to confront at the moment?
That's a very interesting question, because also now in Germany we have legislation that requires all institutions to put more effort into this. And of course any armed forces can do a lot. And it's not so much about the vehicles or the weapons, it's about the housing, it's about the barracks, it's about energy efficient training facilities. And of course, a lot of modernizing needs to be done. I think we have a lot of properties with the German armed forces, as other armed forces have, and I think there can very, very good gains can be made. What many people don't know is that many training sites for the Bundeswehr, they are very, very vivid ecosystems.
Okay.
With a lot of species living there.
In the Wald, yeah, wild.
I think there is enormous potential.
Okay.
And what I can confirm is that there is real awareness to take care of those issues.
Yeah. Do you think the military planners have accepted the way that NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg has said that, being green is also game-changing in the sense that it gives us an advantage on the battlefield? I mean, because it's one thing to say that we want to limit our carbon our carbon footprint based on what you're saying with the barracks and the bases, but do you think there's that acceptance that, look, we really need to change this because this will make that difference when we fight?
No, but it's perfectly logical. If you look at what is going on in Ukraine, I mean, being green can also mean to be autonomous on your own energy supply or to be local on your energy supply. Of course, this gives you more resilience. It gives less vulnerabilities. So I think there are many aspects there where being green in the sense of carbon neutrality also can add up to more security. Okay, well
that's very encouraging to hear. The last point we're going to get to here is, Nico, a lot of the work you focus on is around technology and its impact on defense policy. So as you know, there will be a variety of case studies written in the future about what happened with Ukraine and Russia, whether it's from resilience or supply chains. But 9 months into the war, what has emerged for you as the biggest lesson learned when it comes to EDTs, whether it's in their application or any other area?
I think there are two lessons, if I may, that I see by now as the most important ones from Ukraine. The first one is the Ukrainians are amazing. By the way, we can learn a lot from them. It's a myth to think we can teach them much.
Yeah,
I think we can learn a lot from them. What they are amazing in is the data fusion of using data from all kinds of different sources, satellite images, own reconnaissance, open source intelligence, data from drones, and they fuse it into one data stream, and they are able to identify the targets, to prioritize the targets, and then on the other end use their weapon systems to fire at the targets quickly.
Yeah,
I think that is really modern, and the involvement of all the society and also the open source intelligence community that way, that's certainly a huge innovation in this war. So and the speed and the data transfer via Starlink and data management, that is certainly a lesson to look at. And the second one, of course, is drones.
No.
Nobody is doing anything without drones anymore in Ukraine. And that is true for all branches of troops, that is for all elements of defense and attack. So, and it's not only weaponized drones or the drones that we usually think about in military terms, it's the mass use of small drones, of commercially used drones for live feed on video, for reconnaissance, but also, for example, to map minefields and to surveillance of critical infrastructures. So I think there is a huge drones lesson there.
Well, I mean, what I think stands out most is you just excellent input regarding sort of the use of data and how they turned it all into one targeting package, whether it's, OSNIT or signals intelligence. But moving forward, do you think that the data component will get larger or even more intense? Because as you said, they're already sort of collecting a massive amount right now and using it effectively. So is there another level for militaries to use on this?
I think for us in NATO, I think we understand if we have superior situational awareness by using all the data and by having battlefield connectivity, then with mobility and speed, you can beat brute force and mass. I think that is what the Ukrainians are showing to us.
Yeah, because, at the early stages of the war, they always said that mass takes over morale, right? And, that was a former NATO MARCOM commander who said that. So, that also is just a massive lesson learned, right? That it's fighting smarter as opposed to with force, which can overcome it.
Yeah, to me, fighting smarter means situational awareness because you are able to digitize the battlefield and get the input stream of all data in real time.
Yeah.
And then you use all the data to have mobility and speed and precision.
Agility, yeah.
And I think that is what will be the advantage in the future.
Yeah. Obviously with all of the reforms that you're going on, you have to think though at the same time that countries like China and Russia will also learn from Ukraine and they will also become stronger enemies or targets.
Everybody is learning all of the time, but I think there are reasons why Article 5 is working and why NATO is the strongest defense alliance.
Mm-hmm.
And if NATO learns from this, it will continue to be.
That's great. My last question for you, Nico, is on the battlefield, we've already seen how President Putin has weaponized energy, food, and now winter when it comes to the situation. But what do you think is the next element that will be weaponized by Vladimir Putin?
Well, I'm not interested in being inside of the brain of Vladimir Putin.
Okay.
What I know from is I lived in Russia and Ukraine. I follow him for a very long time. He is more a KGB person than he is a military person. Mm-hmm. So I think the strongest weapon that he sees for himself is the mental war, the psychological warfare, and he tries to get into our minds. And he was unfortunately very successful with that. So that is, I think, the weapon we have to look after most.
Do you think it's waning in terms of his influence? And like you said, I mean, he's already leveraged a lot of asymmetrical elements, which you said. But do you think that psyops or that psychological war against the West is retreating a little bit? Or do you think it's still being somewhat effective in capitals across Europe?
Now, if you use threats inflationary, of course, they wear out and they are not effective anymore. I think we have seen some of that. But let's make no mistake. This is not about politics or about what we think or what Putin thinks. The reality we are in is defined by the battlefield in Ukraine.
Okay.
And Putin is on its back heels at the moment. But depending on how the battlefield situation evolves, he will get weaker or stronger. So I think we really have to focus on that and to support and have to continue supporting Ukraine so that it can decide the situation on the battlefield.
Well, Nico, we look forward to connecting again and hopefully with Germany taking more initiative and leadership. So on that note, thank you so much for coming on to GLOBcast. And again, a last shout out to our sponsors for making this episode happen. The International Visegrad Fund, Wilfried Martens Centre for European Studies, Konrad Adenauer Foundation, the Ministry of Defense of the Slovak Republic, CBRE, Political Capital Institute, and Jagello 2000 for supporting this interview. So thank you, and until next time, everybody, goodbye.